going to be speaking about a sensitive topic. um, yeah, a lot of people might be offended maybe by some of the things I say and some of how I portray it, but my ultimate goal is to help people get some level of clarity and understanding surrounding this whole situation. Um, I was a bit reluctant to make this video largely because a little bit and maybe I don't know. Let me try and explain this whole situation. So before I get started, right? Let me give you context if you don't know what's happening. So basically, what's happening is I think people are outraged on Twitter, on social media, but I think predominantly on Twitter about an interview that Michael Chandler did, right? The reason they are outraged about this interview is because apparently Michael Chandler said something like he is not raising black kids. He is raising just a child in general, basically. So I think a lot of the people on Black Twitter, I call it Black Twitter because I mean that's basically the largest number of people who are upset there. So basically, they are outraged because they are saying that Michael Chandler is basically depriving this kid of his culture, and he is equipping him for the world. Basically, they are saying, well, the world is a little bit different for people who are a bit darker in complexion, and for you to not necessarily prepare him for what's to come in the world. For example, what they mean basically is discrimination and racism, which honestly still exists. I've experienced it, but I don't care about it that much. But I have experienced it a little bit. But so basically, that's their argument, and that's basically the whole situation. If you didn't know what was happening around this whole situation, they are upset basically because he says he's not going to teach him about how to, for example, behave around cops, how to behave in certain situations, and all those type of things. I think the MMA guru made a video on this particular topic, trying to basically highlight the fact that why are people so concerned about people raising how people raise their kids, but he's also basically saying, well, Michael Chandler is basically saying, or he's pretending like he doesn't really care about race, but on the other hand, he was basically saying that his family was praying that their adopted son gets another sibling that looks like him. So that was Mary Guru's argument. So let me give my opinion in this whole situation, right? First of all, I'm going to acknowledge that a large majority of the people on my channel, the people who watch my channel, are largely white people. So yeah, I'm going to try and be as sensitive to you guys as possible, um, but at the same time, while trying to actually maybe explain where the people who are outraged are coming from, right? I'm going to be brutally honest. I don't know if you guys are going to like it or not, but I have to weigh in. Like I said at the beginning of the stream, I'm one of the very few people, black people, who are doing MMA YouTube. So I feel like I should comment. I didn't want to, but I feel like I should comment and try and give some people a little bit of a clarity. So here's why, right? I know a lot of people don't believe that racism still exists, right? And I'm talking basically about the situation of Michael Chandler and his kids, right? I'm trying to explain the outrage, why these people are outraged, right? Um, Racism still exists, Number one, I think people, even though there are people who feel like, oh, the racism doesn't exist and all those type of things, it does. It does. There are people who out there who still hate you for how you look. It doesn't really matter what type of a person you are, just purely based on how you look. People can hate you, right? And those things can lead to discrimination in terms of work opportunities, in terms of how you get treated in public areas like restaurants and all these type of things. So basically, what these people are upset about, especially in America, where that I know people are going to argue that well, these people are sometimes criminals and all those type of things, but it seems like if you watch a lot of videos, it seems like black people are targeted by the police sometimes, So what these people are basically outraged about is that Michael Chandler is not necessarily preparing this kid for the kind of treatment he's going to get based on how he looks, right? So what this basically means is that he is not preparing him for the interaction with a police officer. There's a certain way you have to behave when you're speaking to a police officer so that he doesn't feel threatened. I'm speaking about the United States. I don't live in the United States. Fortunately, we don't have that issue with our police officers. That's corruption, but at the very least, they don't kill a lot of innocent people on a regular basis. But in the United States, it's a really serious problem. So basically, what they are outraged about is that Michael Chandler, in saying that he's not going to raise black kids, he's effectively saying he's not going to prepare them for a situation where a police officer pulls you over and you do certain things that make him feel scared and ultimately ends up killing you. Those are some of the things that they are mentioning or that they are arguing about, basically. Another racial discrimination, basically, whether it's economical, because discrimination can also be economical. For people who don't understand how people feel like racism is made up. It's in people's heads. It doesn't exist, right? But I can personally say that I've experienced it. I think a lot of people have experienced it. Economical racism is being deprived of opportunities, whether it's employment or business opportunities in order to maybe acquire certain contracts or whatever the case is. So racism comes in different forms. So what these people, this is another element, this is another layer to what a lot of the people on Twitter are upset about in terms of their statement. To most people, it sounds like a simple statement, like, no, why are you guys so obsessed with race and wanting people to know they are black and all those type of things. So this is basically one of the many things that they are basically arguing about. Where do I live? I'm from South Africa. So this is one of the various things that people on Twitter are basically upset about because by not necessarily preparing your child as it relates to how to navigate through life, even economically, this could be it's the simplest way to explain it, right? Is imagine a child who grows up in a bubble, who's never exposed to germs, who's never exposed to anything outside the outside world, and then when they turn 21, they just take them to university, and then they leave them there. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to get horribly sick and potentially die because they haven't been exposed to any sort of germs. And then the first time they experience germs is around like a large number of people and sharing a common space. Maybe that's not the best way to explain it. Let me try to explain it a different way. It's like a child who is protected whenever there's conflict at school or in social situations. Their parents also always intervene. Whenever they're being, I don't condone bullying, but I feel like kids need to learn how to deal with challenges and all these type of things. So whenever someone encounters or a child encounters any type of difficulty, the parents will try to intervene and um, they will try to intervene and all those type of things. This will result in the child not having adequate social skills. They won't know how to interact with people. They won't know how to deal with problems, and that leads to suicide and a couple of other things. So that's basically the same situation with not necessarily preparing a child psychologically and in every other way for the kind of discrimination that comes with looking a specific way. Um, so basically, that's in a nutshell. I didn't necessarily explain everything in its whole entirety, but I think those are some of the main points that these people are basically upset about. And I can understand where they're coming from. I don't be as aggressive, but I also feel like Michael Chandler, in choosing and intentionally saying, I'm going to raise this kind of race of children, he needs to understand the consequences that come with being in that particular race, or the kind of result. It's like adopting a Chinese child. You should, at the very least, try and understand the Chinese culture in order to be able to educate your child about their culture and heritage. Because ultimately, you can raise them as, let's say, for example, I adopt a Chinese child and I raise them as a black child. But when they go to school and they start to say things like nigger, 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 it's not going to go well for them. Because even if I believe that they are black, realistically, they are not. So that's basically, I think, the problem that they have with this whole situation is because you are not necessarily teaching this child what comes with being who they are. So basically, yeah, that's the gist of this whole situation. I felt like I didn't want to, but I felt like I should comment on it. I feel like every single thing should be addressed um, calmly and peacefully. I don't like conflict, but I can honestly say I understand where they're coming from, and I just wanted to give everyone a different perspective of this whole situation. So yeah, I appreciate all of you. As always, I love you. See you on the next one. Deuces.